Hi all, another interesting interview, this time with Colleen Sodano. She's a mindset coach and a psychotherapist. And I'll let her introduce herself later on more extensively. But first of all, I always have a question that's related to age with care, of course. So Colleen, if you hear age with care, what are your thoughts about aging and caring?
Yeah, so I think, with aging, I think it's about, looking after ourselves, our physical body, but also mentally. So, we understand now from neuroscience that the brain can change at any age. We just need to keep exercising it. And so we need to keep our minds stimulated. So I think with aging, obviously people go into retirement, and sometimes the way they were using their brains, they stop using it in that way. And so they start to go, oh, I can't do these things as well as I used to, but it's actually because they're not exercising their brain enough. And so I think it's really important to make sure that as we age, that we keep that mental exercise up, and we also get our emotional needs met, because I think being in a job and when we retire, sometimes a lot of emotional needs are being met within that job. And then when we leave, we don't know now why when we're retired, we should be happy, but actually we're not feeling that happy. And so I think that's an important thing as we get older and when we start, going into retirement, to make sure that those emotional needs are being met, and we can't take the things that work gave us for granted, that we're just going to naturally get it when we're not working.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, great answer.
Thank you.
We have discussed a little bit beforehand, and I was very surprised to hear that you have been an electrical engineer before, and now are doing something completely different. So can you tell me something about your steps and what to this place?
Yeah, so sure. So I was working as in electrical design engineering, designing substations, and there was parts of that job I really enjoyed. I loved the team spirit. I loved working in a team, but it really didn't fulfill me. And I felt that I wanted more. For a long time, it wasn't quite what I wanted to do. And it gets to the case of, well, what should I do? I didn't quite know. But I kept on getting this feeling like I wanted to be of some sort of service to others. I wanted to help. I wanted to, I had done a lot of personal work on myself, and I was really into self-help. I'd always loved psychology. I always enjoyed helping people. I was, in a way, a person that people would come to naturally to talk to about things. And so I thought, well, that I seem to be good at it, and I'm really interested in it. And then I happened to find a article in a magazine. I think it was Psychology Today or one of these type of magazines, where it was written by the founders of the school of psychotherapy that I'm trained in. And it's a very practical approach to psychotherapy. It's based in all the human sciences, so evolutionary science, neuroscience, social science. It's not just based in psychology. So it's very much looking at the evidence of what we understand about the human condition. And because it was so practical, and I come from this engineering background, it really resonated with me. Because it is based more in the sciences. It's not theoretical. It's not just let's go back into your past and delve in there for the sake of it. It's very much about what can we do now to move things forward? What are the solutions? And obviously, I've always been looking for solutions in engineering. And so to me, it just resonated so much. And I thought, this is it. This is what this is. I'd been looking for something. And then when I read this, I thought, this is it. And then suddenly I went and found out loads more about it. And I thought, okay, I want to study this. And then I started on a foundation course to see how I liked it, and I loved it. And then there was no looking back. So it ticks a lot of boxes for me.
Yeah. And being an engineer before means for me that you probably have a very analytical mind. So now I can understand this switch, because you kind of back it up with all the science that's behind it.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah. Made sense to me.
Yeah. and it's so good of you that you kind of created your own new reality. And you were talking about visualization. Maybe that had a big part in it. So can you explain a bit about that?
Yes, definitely. So visualization, I think, is a really a powerful tool that I think doesn't get utilized enough. We're sitting on a very powerful tool, and that's our imagination. And we tend to use it more in a negative way than in a positive way. And so if you think about what anxiety is, you have to imagine the awful things happening. Without an imagination, there would be no anxiety. There would be no, fearing of what people think of you, fearing about failure, because you have to imagine yourself failing. And so we tend to use our imagination quite negatively. And we can imagine, like, say you need to do a presentation, you can sometimes imagine the horrible things that can go wrong. We don't tend to imagine it going brilliantly well. Mm. And so sports people use this technique. They call it mental rehearsal. And Michael Phelps used it. Usain Bolt used it. Actually, Michael Phelps is on record saying that he felt visualization actually helped him enormously, was a huge part of his success. And so sports people have used it for a long time, and they understand the power of visualization. And so we also understand from neuroscience that the brain, not our conscious brain, like where we are chatting now and where we think we live totally, but our unconscious brain, the part of our brain that, is just about responses and reactions, that part really doesn't know the difference between our imagination and reality. So that's why we are able to, if we think about something really frightening, we are able to switch on the flight and fight response by just imagining it, because the brain doesn't really know the difference. Is it really happening, or are you imagining it? And so, when you watch a scary film, your heart can still race and all of that. It doesn't know that it's not real. And so when we do the visualization, there's a part of your brain that doesn't know what you're visualizing is not happening. So if you're visualizing awful things, then a part of your brain thinks these awful things are happening to you. If you imagine yourself walking down that street and getting attacked because the part of your brain thinks that's happening. So equally, if you imagine things going really well for yourself and you do the mental rehearsal, like say you've got something to do that you feel really nervous about, but you do mental rehearsal and a visualization of that thing in quite a lot of detail, you do it, say, 10 times before, your brain believes that it has successfully done that 10 times already. And so when you go to do the actual thing, it makes it much easier and not as frightening, because your brain has already been taught this is okay. I can do this. I've done it successfully 10 times already. You've got almost the images stored, because our brain is really like a pattern matching organ. And it will go back into all the stored information that it's got there about, what do I understand about this situation? What do I understand about the smell or the standing up in front of a crowd? What are the records I have? I have me falling to pieces when I stand in front of an audience to talk. Or do I have a record of me doing this successfully 10, 12, 15 times? So it's always referring back to what you've got stored. So if you've imagined these things, that also becomes part of what you have stored to refer it back to. And your brain doesn't really know the difference. So it really is a very powerful tool that I really encourage people to try out.
I'm very curious how you do your visualization, because I'm an artist. I see images, but I also make them because I need sometimes to have it really in front of me. So I'm really curious, how is that for you? Do you think in words, or do you think in images, or?
Yes, so I'm quite a visual person. So I visualize quite easily images. It's images for me, for sure. Mm-hmm. My husband, say, for instance, he's much more an auditory person. So actually, when I do, because I do guided meditations and visualizations for people. And it depends on what your modality for learning is. So some people are more auditory, some people are more visual, some people are kinesthetic learners, and they have to be doing stuff in order to actually let it stick. And for my husband, he's quite an auditory person. And so whenever I do the visualizations, I will bring in lots of things about, and the sound of this and so he responds in a way much better. He gets that much easier than he does visualization, like actually seeing an image. And so when we say visualization, it's about what you respond to. So if you were a very kinesthetic person, it was all about the touching and whatever, I would probably bring in things like you feel this on your skin and you feel so I'd bring in lots of things about what you're feeling on a sensory level. So, but I'm very visual. So the images work very well for me. Mm. So I think it is finding what your particular modality is, your strongest one is, and then adapting it for that.
Yeah. Does it in any way connect with the trance state? Trance state doesn't mean anything to me, but you mentioned it. So does it connect in any way with the trance state?
Yes, definitely. So really what we're talking about trance state is our brain has different brain wave frequencies. And so we have, when we're talking now, we're in a beta brainwave frequency. And then we go down into when we are in focus, probably when you're doing your art and you are in deep focus and concentration, you probably go into an alpha state, which is a kind of trance-like state in a way. And that's a lower brainwave frequency. And then when you're in meditation, you go into a theta brainwave frequency, and then sleep is delta. And so your brain waves slow down as you go down into closer to sleep. And so what theta is the trance state. So theta is the state that is about meditation and about lowering your critical thinking. So when we're in the beta state, like now, our brain waves are oscillating a lot faster. And so it's where we have all our critical thinking. You'll be thinking about what I'm saying, judging. Whereas when you go into this theta brainwave pattern, a lot of the critical thinking drops away. So you far less, if I said something to you while you were in that state, it would probably just wash over you. You wouldn't really analyze it in the way you're analyzing it now. And so that is about going into the trance state, into these lower brainwave frequencies to calm your brain down, calm the emotional brain down as well, and that's where a lot of our, if we are in high anxiety states and stuff like that, it's our emotional brain that is agitated. And so doing these techniques of lowering your brain waves calms that whole part of your brain down, and it allows us to see more clearly, think more clearly, and have more clarity and a higher perspective. Because the emotional brain, unfortunately, it does cloud our thinking.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, so it's important to find ways to calm that down.
Yeah, but you use techniques to come into this trance states.
Yes.
Are they difficult to learn?
No, not at all. I mean, it really is very simple. I mean, you can do it yourself. I mean, it's what I do. I mean, I do guided ones. What I'll do is I'll get the person to close their eyes, and I'll take them into a relaxation. And it's about relaxing the body, going through. Perhaps you start at your feet, and then you work out. It's like a feeling of a river of relaxation flowing through you, and it's a very slow pace. And it's you get sort of like, you follow the lilt of someone's voice. So it's a little bit sort of like swaying the way the person's speaking. And then you take them through this relaxation, and then probably a visualization as well. And it's just about relaxing the body and the mind. And it's much easier when you start having someone guide you through it. But of course, you can do it yourself. If you think of what a traditional meditation is, it's just following the breath. And so just watching the breath, counting the breath, doing every time the mind wanders, you come back to the breath. When people are starting, sometimes that's more difficult to do because the brain wants to, or the mind wants to race around. Whereas if someone's guiding you, it's much easier just to be focusing on what that person's saying. And so going into these trance states or these lowered states of relaxation is really just about focused attention. You're focusing your attention away from the outside world, and you're going internally into an internal space of where there isn't a lot of noise in your head, because you're just focusing on what that person is saying.
Yeah. Yeah, when you say beginners wander off, then I think I'm already meditating now for several years, but I still
Oh, yes. Yeah.
in all directions.
Yes. I mean, that is why they call it a practice, because it's not, I mean, it is a practice. You've been doing it for years and years. And sometimes, and I mean, you must find that when you do meditate, sometimes you'll have better days than other days. Some days you feel really in the zone, and other days you find it really difficult.
Yeah, well, being in the zone hasn't happened a lot to me yet.
Yes.
I can only remember 2 times that I thought afterward, oh, wait a minute, that should be it. But
Yes.
somehow I can't reach it again. So
yeah, yeah. I mean, some people find like doing chanting helps as well to get themselves into this, it's just this really rhythmic state of letting the outside world drop away and having that space, that empty space, to not have all that noise going around in our heads of what you should be doing, the shopping, the whatever,
That's a tip. I'm going to try that as well then.
Yeah, because it's just having focus on something that can allow all the other stuff to drop away.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned me working on my art, and indeed, if I'm into it, I forget the time, I forget to drink my water, I forget to walk around often, because it's
yes,
to sit, I forget everything. But
that's right. And you probably find someone could come into the room and say your name and call you, and you don't even hear them. That's a trance state. That's the alpha state, 100%. It's this sort of, you're still operating. People do it. People have it when they drive as well. People have been driving for years. They get somewhere and they think, gosh, I can't even remember the route I took. I'm just here, because they're in this sort of trance-like state. They're safe, but they sort of not really, they've gone into another sort of state. And you find that with art, with drawing, with dance, with all those type of things, people get into this other sort of state. They're still functioning, but the world just sort of falls away.
Yeah. So I did know what it was after all.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's a lovely feeling though, isn't it? To just be in that zone,
Yeah, totally. What I was surprised about was that you mentioned trance state and quantum physics in one sentence, and I didn't get it.
Yes. So, I mean, when I say quantum physics, so it's sort of like, with quantum physics, the whole idea is that nothing exists, that we are all energy, matter doesn't actually exist. So I think all the matter in the entire universe would, be the size of a tennis ball. It doesn't actually exist. When you look into a particle, it's just a vortex of energy. And so what makes something turn from waveform into a particle is observation. And so, basically every particle has a lot of, what is around it is just potential. Every wave around it is just potential. And so when we are visualizing, we become the observer. And so, with quantum physics, something has to be observed for it to come into existence or to become particle. And so if we are visualizing, then in a way you are entering that quantum field. And really what you want to do is you want to get into the right state. So you want to be in that state where you are not in that critical thinking, in order to be in that state, to sort of get into that visualization, and sort of almost sort of like you need to embody it. So if you say you are wanting to visualize a certain future or yourself doing something, then when you're doing the visualization, it's not enough to just almost visualize it. You have to believe it. So if you want that thing for yourself, in the visualization, you're there, you've got it, it's yours. What does it feel like? What does it feel if you're nervous about something, say it's a presentation, and you do a visualization? It's not just about seeing yourself doing that presentation yourself well, it's about feeling what that feels like. How are you standing? What does it feel like in your body? How's your voice? How does your voice sound? Actually step into that. So you're actually stepping into that reality and creating that, you being the observer of that and bringing it into the material world. And so it is really linked. If you're doing sort of these visualizations and you're doing it sort of, you're getting into the right state, you are entering that quantum field.
Yeah, and part of what you say to me is very practical, and part is almost philosophical.
Yes.
Probably, what I'm used to, I think is practical, and what I'm not used to is more philosophical.
Yeah. I mean, it can seem like that to a lot of people, but then if you think about even there's a lot of people who will say, oh no, the law of attraction and stuff like that, it's nonsense. But actually, when you look at it from a science point of view, it's not, because if you look at what the law of harmonic resonance says, is that harmonics work, they attract each other. So if you take two guitars and you put them next to each other, and you pull the string of the A string of the one guitar, without touching the other guitar, the other A string will start resonating, because that's how it works. So the resonance will attract the other resonance. And so if you think about what our feelings are, it's just energy. So if you are feeling sadness, you feeling anger or whatever, then that is a resonance that you're sending out that will come back to you. So just from the point of view of that, of how harmonics work, and that feelings and emotions are energies and they have a resonance, you're going to attract that back. So, I mean, I'm quite a practical person. I always like to know how things work, but I think to me, there is an explanation for how these things, what people mean by law of attraction. Is how you speak about it, though. Do you speak about it in a really woo-woo way, or do you back it up with actually more that there's science sometimes behind some of these concepts or ideas?
Yeah, I've noticed that a lot of people who are talking about the same subject can do it in a very different way, and sometimes it appeals and sometimes it doesn't. So that's really interesting.
Yes, yeah, it's just in the way people, the vocabulary they use, the words they use.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
And then that's also about resonance, because what do you resonate with more? Do you resonate with something that's more practical, or do you resonate with really flowery words? It also comes down to resonance.
And sometimes the tone of voice and how people are how looking, how their face is of influence as well, isn't it?
Yeah, yes. Oh, yes. Because I mean, we communicate with so much more than just what we're saying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You mentioned you are working on a program. What kind of program is it going to be?
Yes, so the program I'm working on, it's actually aimed at the moment I'm aiming it, the first run of it is aimed more at women. So it's for women who perhaps they're at a point in their life where they feel stuck. They've got to a point where they just can't necessarily move forward in a way that they would like to. And so it's mostly aimed at female entrepreneurs who perhaps they have their own business and they are struggling to take it to the next level. And so it's about looking for limiting beliefs, finding some of the things, some of the fears, because we've all got these root patterns that where we say we have a fear about something. Like I've had a problem in the past with perfectionism, and it really is a thing that can paralyze you and keep you stuck. And so I had to really ask myself what had happened to me to make me someone who was so scared of getting things wrong. I was so scared of things not being perfect. What had happened to me? I wasn't born that way. So what had happened to me? And so part of the program is about going back, and I've got techniques that help with this, going back to find some of the source of where this comes from. And then it's about reprogramming or rewiring the brain, because you can. We know that you can alter your brain maps. And so the second part of the program is about rewiring. And the third part is about then, turning that into something that you attract. So if you eradicate some of these limiting beliefs and fears, then you are open to receive much more and create an open pathway for yourself.
Sounds very solid, very complete.
Yes, it's like sort of 3-part system. So strip away, reprogram, and then magnetize, sort of bring it in.
Yeah.
So it's a 6-week program. So there'll be 2 weeks on each stage. And then with it, I will be giving guided meditations to help with each process. So guided meditation that would be needed to be listened to, if possible, every evening. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be long, but it's to fit it in if they could, even if it's not every day, even if it's sort of, a good few times a week, but more than just, the once.
Yeah.
It's sort of, we sort of need repetition to take things on board. That's how we learn, through repetition. It's how our brain, if you think about just how neural connections fire, they get stronger and stronger by repetition. That's why the old saying, practice makes perfect, is quite true.
Yeah. That's how we form habits.
Yes, and that's how we form habits. Yeah. So, we need to repeat things to really understand it and to take the learning in on a sort of a level which becomes part of our biology, becomes part of our brain maps.
Yeah. But you're working on it, so you don't have a link yet where people can.
Yes. So what I have is I'm doing a masterclass next Thursday. It's a free masterclass, and I'm going to set up a temporary Facebook group to do the training. So I'm going to do it live on Facebook. So whoever wants to join the masterclass can just send me a note, and if they want, I can add them to the Facebook group. And the training will be at 4:00 UK time. So I think that is 5:00 your time.
Yes.
So it'll be 4:00 next Thursday. And it will be a masterclass on, basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to use one of the techniques that I use in order to find limiting beliefs, or it's not just limiting beliefs. It's sort of, sometimes it's, if you've ever had a feeling your whole life where you don't know why, but you've always had this feeling like you don't fit in, or whatever it may be, or you've always struggled with something as a feeling that's always been there, but you don't really understand where it comes from. Or why do you always get annoyed when this happens? Your annoyance is too much for the actual thing. Where does that come from? And so this technique is good for those type of situations when you're really unsure about where it comes from, but it's something that sort of plagued you. It's always been there. And so this technique helps to uncover some of those things, because most of the time what it is, it's unfinished business from the past. There's something from the past that has happened that is incomplete. You haven't dealt with it and let it go. And so it's still hanging on there. It's like my perfectionism, that there was obviously something that had happened to me to have created this pattern of fear in my life of getting things wrong. And so I did get to the bottom of what that was and found the source of it. Because it does. The source then creates a pattern that spreads across your whole life. Yeah. And sometimes the original incident you don't associate with the behavior or the feeling, because you don't think it's connected, or you can't remember it, or because it happened so young and you were a child, you don't realize the impact it made on you, so you disregard it. Oh, it can't be that. That was nothing. But actually, when you're 5 or 6, it's quite a big thing. Yeah. And so sometimes we disregard these things.
I would have so loved to be with this masterclass, but I have an appointment exactly at that time. So
Yes.
is there going to be a replay?
Well, it will be, I'm going to do it live, but obviously the replay will be there for anybody to watch. So it will be there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it up for a week. So I'm going to put the temporary Facebook group up, and then I'm going to leave the training there for a week, and then I'm going to close the Facebook group down or delete the Facebook group. So people have a week to watch it. And so obviously if people participate live, then, that's amazing. But obviously it's still there. You can still do the process. Obviously it's better, like say I was sitting with you here and watching, interacting with you. It's much better if I can see the person.
The energy is
still, be much more powerful to doing a one-on-one like this. But it will still work within a group dynamic. You'll get the sense of what it's about.
Okay. Well.
Yes.
I have put on your Facebook profile address. I'll also post it later on in the description box. But this is your personal profile.
Yes.
And the group you were talking about, is that Mindset Hacks?
Yeah, so that's my group that I have just generally, but I'm not going to do my training in that. I'm going to set up just a temporary private Facebook group just for the training, and so it'll just be open for a week, just for people to come in, get the masterclass, and then after a week I'm going to close it down. So it's not connected to my normal group at all, or my profile.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, I'll put this link in the description box as well, so people can connect with you.
Yeah. So if people are interested, then they just need to send me a message, and that they want to join the class, and I will send them the link to the group.
Okay. Great. Interesting. Last question, just for me. You were talking about neuroscience. I have heard about that before, and I have been looking for books several times, and sometimes I thought I found a book that was interesting, but that wasn't so much.
Yes.
The title you can advise?
Yes, there is. There's one that's quite good. It's about how we can change our brain. It's called, I might get this slightly wrong, but I think it's called The Brain That Changes Itself. Let me just have a look. But that's quite a good one, because that actually goes into quite a lot of detail about how you can, at any age at all, a lot of people think, especially years ago, people believed that as we became adults, our brain was fixed. Yeah. And now they understand that it's not. And it's not even sort of like, it doesn't ever stop. To your dying day, you can change your brain. And so this book goes into quite a lot of detail about that, about how neuroplasticity, basically, how you can change your brain. So that's quite a good one that I would recommend. It depends on what side of neuroscience you are, interested in. I'm quite interested in neuroplasticity and changing the brain.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about it. I have no idea which side I'm interested in.
Yeah,
I have to start somewhere.
Yes, I think that's quite good for. Yeah, it's called The Brain That Changes Itself. That it is. Yeah.
Well,
Norman Dodge is the author.
Okay.
Yeah.
Colleen, thank you so much. Time always flies with these kind of interesting interviews, so that's a pity. But you have told us a really lot, so I can think about that later on. It was really interesting, so thank you for your time. And yeah.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much for inviting me on. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay. Bye all.
Bye.